Rev up your engines!
Top tens. Hey, Scotty, what are your thoughts on the new Chevy Blazer made in Mexico? Well, I didn't like the ones made in the United States. I can tell you right now, I'm not going to like the ones made in Mexico from my experience of vehicles made in Mexico. And it's GM too, so I really don't have much hope for that being a very good vehicle. You know, why do you think they're making them in Mexico? Because it's cheaper to make them. And it's cheaper to make them because there's lower quality there. And I certainly wouldn't buy one myself. You never know. I'll say more in 5 years if I get any customers that buy them and I get to work on them and check them out. But I wouldn't give it a glowing review yet, for sure. Connor Woodruff says, hey, Scotty, I'm looking to buy a 2019 Kia Stinger GTI. I agree with Michael Ball, who answered the next one. He said, let someone else take the depreciation hit and buy them used. They are extremely overpriced because that's their sporty car and they sell them. If you don't mind the money and you want to pay that for a car that isn't going to last forever, go right ahead. But those are zippy little cars. You don't mind the money, it's your money. But really, you go out and get something that's used, that's still in good shape, you're going to save a ton. As an example, I had a customer that just bought a Tesla Model S, their fancy fast one, right? The original owner paid $125,000 for that vehicle. He bought it used with 15,000 miles for $45,000, like 1/3 of what it originally cost. So that's a smarter way of doing it. Sure out, Hudson says, Scotty, what do you think of a Park Avenue Buick with 3800 Series 2 with 180,000 miles? Okay, that 3800 engine was one of the best engines that GM ever made. Those six-cylinder engines could run forever as long as you kept oiling them and didn't overheat them. Now, it does have 180,000 miles, so you didn't give the year. But a Buick with 180,000 miles isn't worth that much money. If you can get it cheap, and you take it to a guy like me first who checks it out and says, hey, buy it if it's cheap enough. I've had customers buy those things for $800, $1,000, drive them for 3, 4, 5 years and not have that many problems with them. Angelo's Workbench says, Scotty, what can cause the AC system to suddenly blow all the Freon and oil all over the place at the compressor? Well, it's generally one of two things. Either the compressor blew and the seal went out and it all went pfft, or you've got a backup in the system and it built up so much pressure. Most compressors have what's called a pop-off valve, and if the pressure gets too high, other than exploding and making metal shrapnels, it blows the valve and it all leaks out of the high pressure valve. So check that first. It could be there's a restriction, because I've seen people say, oh, the compressor's bad, and they put a new one on and that blows immediately because it builds up too much pressure and blows that too. So you got to check that in both of them. Stunt car driver says, are Volkswagen reliable cars? Sure, if you got a time machine you can go back into the 1960s. They were real reliable then. Now they're completely unreliable, rolling piles of junk as they age. Check out their insanely low resale value. You can get 8, 10-year-old Volkswagens for nothing, $800, $1,200, because they're so expensive to fix when they break. They're high-tech German cars with a bunch of plastic and electronic computer crap, and dude, they break down. I haven't had a single customer in the last 15 years that bought a Volkswagen and ever bought another Volkswagen. Survey says, have you ever worked on DMC Deloreans? Yeah, I've worked on them, you know. They were oddball cars, you know. They were made in Ireland, and they had Volvo engines, but I believe they had either Italian or Swedish transmissions on them, and they were actually pretty junky cars. They had that stainless steel body you didn't have to paint, but that's hilarious because the stainless steel was so cheap that here in Texas, it rusted anyway. Most guys ended up sanding them down and painting them, so, you know, some people liked collecting them because of Back to the Future, but they were actually pretty crappy cars, underpowered. They're very slow. They weighed a lot. They were heavy. And if the air conditioners broke, whoo-wee, the windows didn't roll down, so you'd be really hot here in Texas. Austin Croker says, Scotty, I got a 2019 Honda Civic LS base model. Is it reliable? Yeah, they generally are very reliable vehicles, you know, especially if you have standard transmissions, but their automatics are okay. They're better than they used to be. I had customers that had the old ones and the trannies kept breaking the automatics, but I've had the same customers buy newer Honda Civics with automatics, and they held up pretty well. They didn't break down on them, so they're better made than they used to be for their automatics. Honda learned. Honda makes all their own transmissions, by the way. They don't buy them from somebody else. Piccolo Namek. Scotty, if the catalytic converter is out, but I don't change it, does it damage the engine if I keep driving, or does it get worse gas miles? It depends on how it goes out. If it breaks and the stratus inside cracks, and it jams in and the pressure goes up, yeah, your car won't go fast enough, the engine will overheat, do a lot of damage. If it just says it's inefficient and the car runs okay, yeah, I've had customers driving 5 years that way, no problems. But they can break in many different ways. And as long as the temperature gauge doesn't get hot and it goes 60 miles an hour with no problems and you got plenty of exhaust coming out the back, it generally isn't going to hurt anything. Sandy says, I got an 04 Nissan Frontier. I went to get an alignment. They said they can't do it because the wheel bearing's bad. Can I do it myself with no experience? I'm really stressing out. All right. If you've got a Frontier where you can buy the entire hub assembly and bearing, sure. That just has 4 bolts that hold in it. You take it out and put another one on. If it's one where you have to press the old bearing off and press the new bearing on, now you really can't do that yourself. That takes years of experience, because if you hammer it on with a hammer, you'll probably break it trying to get it on, and then it'll be just as bad when you put the new one on because it's on crooked. But a lot of them these days, you can buy the bearing hub assembly aftermarket made in China that works okay for a lighter vehicle like that, and it just bolts off and on. I got videos on that. Just watch some of them. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.